just time for the first session, that is Keynote 1, How I Did It at My Company, Learnings Through Experience. Live examples, not just theory, by Mr. Bhupinder Singh. He is the CEO of Sunbeam Auto. So friends, here is Mr. Bhupinder Singh, and here is his little introduction, which talks a lot about him. So friends, 3 decades, it's there on LinkedIn as well, 3 decades of corporate experience. He shaped up one of the best teams in auto components in the country. His company is the world leader in aluminum die casting and counts all the major auto companies, automakers, auto component companies around the world as customers. And it is also the first Indian company with the capacity of 70,000 metric tons per annum. That's a lot. And his company has seen prolific M&A activity and obviously spearheaded by him. That is why we say here that it is right from him, straight from the horse's mouth, a person, a very good human being, one of the masters of M&A finance. So friends, without further ado, it is our honor and pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Bhupinder Singh. He is the CEO of Sunbeam Auto. Singh Saab, you there? Great. You can see him.
Hi. Morning, Anush.
So good morning, sir. A big welcome to you, sir, to the second WAF Masterclass. And so it was so nice to have you at the last Masterclass, the first one, and it's so nice to have you this time as well. And I'm sure this could not have been complete without your expert inputs, and we are humbled and obliged that you are starting this Masterclass and you are setting the tone for today. All yours, sir. All over to you.
Thank you, Anush. Thank you for this wonderful introduction, I would say. And I'm so encouraged and thrilled to again come on the WAF. Just briefing the team and the audience about my experiences on the real-time experience on the M&A. So the topic which has been given to me today is the art of negotiation. I'm just going to talk about my real-time experience. So a few things which just come to my mind, which is why the M&A route and what were the hurdles we faced during this M&A route, and why PE made sense to us. PE means private equity, and what we worth. What is that we look for as a consideration out of the whole deal? What were the odds, and what we achieved finally out of this negotiation, and my experience. So the first is that why.
Mr. Singh, your screen is not visible. Can you do it in share screen mode, sir? Or your video is not on?
Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's on. Yeah, perfect.
Okay. So why the M&A route? So the reason behind M&A, normally the reason why companies do M&A is because of the vertical or the horizontal expansion, or they get merged into a bigger company, which makes operational sense also. But in our case, it was a succession planning. So that was a basic thing that we worked on. And okay, now it's okay. I mean, I think there's some network connection.
Yes, sir, we can see you, but it's kind of stalling. It's not smooth.
It's not smooth.
Yes,
now,
sir. A bit better.
Okay. Can you hear me at least?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay. So that's fine. So we can carry on. So so the objective of the M&A was the succession planning, because the owner wants to retire, and that was the main objective for us. So the 3 key challenges which came in our minds is, one is the workforce, which is to have a continuity of the workforce, continuity of the vendors, and continuity of the suppliers. So these were the 3 key challenges for us, and we were able to overcome that very smoothly, because we had a long interaction with the customers, vendors, workforce, and every stakeholder was taken into confidence before even we launched the M&A activity. So the main hurdle for us was to find the right partner. So finding the right partner who can give some direction to the company, just to move in the right direction, was a big challenge for us. So somehow we were able to find out a right partner with the help of consultants around us, and that has definitely helped us. Even they're helping us even right now. Then the second challenge was finding the right valuation. So the promoter who has spent whole of his life in making the company, developing the company, and bringing the organization up to this level, expects something. So it was very important for us to find out the right valuation for the organization. So the whole thrust was on ensuring the right valuation for all the stakeholders in the company. Timelines was a third challenge. So from the buy side and sell side, there were a lot of timelines were put in, and it was the responsibility of the person who is managing the M&A activity to ensure that both the timelines are met, and both the stakeholders, the buyers and the sellers, they feel happy about it. And the last big hurdle which we faced was the stakeholder management. So that was the biggest challenge, because this activity involves taking every single owner, which is either a promoter or the new owners or the investors, even the bankers, into confidence. So the stakeholder management was a big challenge for us, but somehow it was managed very smoothly. So these were the things which were basically hurdles for us. And uh, the basic purpose of allowing this M&A and going through M&A route was, one is the succession planning I discussed with you. Second is access to new technologies and markets. So once the company goes into a stabilization mode, there is no much need for an organization to grow, put new greenfield projects, come into expansion mode. These were the problems which we were facing, and we felt that after M&A, we will have a possibility of growing the organization, and we did so. Corporate governance is also one of the issues. So with the PE companies coming in, we can always see a better governance in terms of compliances, in terms of managing the organization. That is definitely there, and that was also the need of the hour. And the last was inability to infuse the capital for the growth. So we understood that in the current level of the operations, there is no chance of any infusion of the capital. So it was basically stagnated. There was no infusion as such. So the growth was limited to the current resources. We were not adding any more resources, tangible or intangible, for the growth of the organization. So with this M&A route was very important for us, because we wanted to see the next level of the organization. And finally we chose a PE partner who can help us with all these things, with the infusion of the capital. They can also be forward looking, bringing some technologies to the organization, so that we can add new markets and new customers to our portfolio. So why PE? So one is that we understood that it will be stable expansion capital that will be infused by the PE, and we will have the sufficient funds to grow organically and move on to the new technologies, new products, at least trying to transform some sort of, I would say, technology or upgradation of machines within the organization. And the next was the managerial expertise. So company was run by a limited managerial expertise, which was basically required to run the day-to-day operations and to manage some new product with the existing customers. But to expand to the export markets, expanding the portfolio with the existing customers, creating new customers, new product lines, we required a managerial expert. So bringing PE into the picture is definitely helped us in bringing a lot of expertise into the organization, and that has actually happened with us. One is the larger corporate reach. So we have definitely reached out to a lot of people, because the private equity player has a lot of contacts in the market. They know a lot of big players in the world, and that has really helped us in bringing a lot of connections and the new business to the organization. So what are we worth? So that is the next question. What are we worth? And it's a very a big question, as far as the existing promoter is concerned. So we evaluated the organizations based on many things. One is that what is the terminal valuation of the organization, and what is the asset value of the organization, what are the cash flows and how many multiples organization deserves. So and uh, and on the other hand, there were a lot of negotiation on deductibles also. For example, the working capital cycle, um, and then the debt like items. So whole thing was going on for a long time, and finally we arrived at a figure which is called an enterprise value. And after the enterprise value, we arrived at a net consideration. Though it is a very cumbersome and a long process, uh, and lot many things goes into it, which includes the detailed due diligence on the accounts for many years, and establishing the right processes where you can calculate the correct working capital, and the long term and the short term debts, which is not primarily from the bank but otherwise as well appearing in the books. So this exercise was very extensive, and we were able to actually find out the worth of the organization, and we agreed finally on a net consideration for the organization. So next is what were the odds. So we actually understood the odds, which is strength and weaknesses of the organization. So the strength of the organization was earnings which company was making, which is basically the EBITDA. Second is the market positioning of the organization. Third is the size of the company and the low debt position. So these were the strengths we had uh, at the time of M&A, and that has actually been very favorable to us. And the weaknesses, we identified following weaknesses in the organization. One is customer concentration. So there was a lot of dependence on few big customers. Segment concentration, which is primarily automotive. Lack of automation. The plant was working on a very low automation, and the disruption from technologies. But disruption means BS4 to BS6, the new emission norms. Um, electric vehicles is one of the disruptions. So these kind of disruptions were also seen as a weaknesses for the cash flows and the EBITDA for the future. So these were the odds which we considered during the M&A. Uh, of course, there was a lot of negotiations, and then uh, people felt that we were paying over the market price, and the seller was thinking that I was not even paid the market price. So this is part of the negotiation, and that is actually finally settled, and the deal happened. It took us about more than a year to finalize this M&A deal, because there are a lot of processes which went into it, a lot of consultants, the valuation consultant, the M&A consultants, the lawyers, everybody was in picture and trying to give their best to it. But at the end of it, uh, I have three things to say. One is the whole M&A process involves assess the organization, assess the capability of the organization, financial position of the organization, and then second, agree. What have been assessed should be agreed between buyer and a seller, the agreement on valuations, the agreement on compliances, and the agreement on the way forward, and then act. And third is the action, which involves signing of the agreements, execution of the agreements, transfer of the value consideration, and closure of the deal. So the three A's were very important for us, and this was done very successfully. So what has come out of M&A for us is great leadership, which is we started building the team, and we understood where the gaps were, and we have actually built the team with a lot of good people in place now, and all the gaps have been filled. And then one is the capability development, which is xenophobia. So we developed the capability of the organization to work independently, to take up the challenges for the future, to work on the new technologies, even to work on the disruptive technologies, for example, the electric vehicles and the BS6. parts, which is definitely a new development for all of us. And then the post integration, there was a challenge of sustainability. So we sustained the operations, we sustained the stability in the organization, and it's almost 2 years now that we have been running the organization post M&A, and everything is fine, successful. The company is doing very well. So that was my experience about M&A, which I did, and it was pretty successful, I would say. Thank you so much.
Great. That's fantastic, Mr. Singh. So, so before we get into the Q&A mode, Mr. Singh, if I can just, ask you a couple of questions. Your M&A thing was, I think, a year or two back, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
Yes. So what we are going through right now are challenging times, the pandemic times. So the 3 A's that you had mentioned, assess, agree, and act. So where has possibly a shift happened in those 3 A's, pre-COVID and post-COVID, if you can share something on that?
What I can assess from the post-COVID situation is that the lot of companies have an, I would say, bad cash position as of now. So in this situation, the people who have cash has an advantage. So the people who have cash can definitely put in value to the organization, and the seller may not have that much of say. So in such a situation, assessing all depends on the buyer in today's market.
Okay, so basically it becomes a buyer's market. So our valuation consultants and M&A consultants in that case have a very limited role. Is that correct?
I won't say that. I mean, everybody will push the valuation to their side, but it is definitely a very challenging market and a difficult situation as of now.
Okay. So one more thing, how can M&A be used as a tool to leverage during these challenging times?
See, the people who have cash today can definitely take over the companies or add to their portfolio the companies who are actually run out of cash, because there are a lot of companies which are basically dependent on working capital cycle, and with this COVID situation, the working capital cycle is completely dried up.
True.
And people are facing acute shortage of cash, and the cash is only with the banks, and they are not also giving just because the companies are not performing. So they don't see going forward companies generating a lot of cash. So in this situation, the companies who have cash can acquire the companies. I would say fill it with the working capital needs, and then definitely it makes a lot of sense because the companies were profitable and they are still profitable.
Fair enough. So during the lockdown, we had also seen that a lot of blue chip and top automotive companies were actually, and the listed ones, they were actually going and buying their own shares, possibly as an investment, that later on when the times are good and normal and rocking, they possibly would sell at a good profit. So that vis-a-vis M&A, what would be a better investment?
I'm not sure. It actually depends on case to case, how your capital structure is placed, how your cash structure is placed in the organization, and how you're going to bring the cash to the organization. If you talk about reduction of share capital, you have a very limited scope of raising funds through capital structure because of restrictions under the Companies Act. So, but if you can dare to share your equity with somebody else, and that involves a bigger risk than buying your own share capital, I think it's wise today to go for M&A.
Okay, fair enough. And our dear attendees and participants, at any given point of time, if you have a question, because हम तो चलते रहेंगे, हमारी बातें होती रहेंगी, just raise your hand. We'll immediately come to you. All right. Okay. So, Mr. Singh, in these challenging times, if there is some advice which you would like to give to our participants and the industry at large, because later this will also go on WAF TV, on how the promoters and the CFOs can possibly structure or restructure their companies.
Well, I mean, I am experiencing the same thing which you actually asked. I mean, there are a lot of challenges. The volumes are not there, but there is no need to panic. The industry will definitely come back. These are abnormal times. Let's understand this is a force majeure situation for all of us. It is not a very normal situation. There is a lack of manpower in this in the NCR region. I would say the entire nation is facing this thing. People are just going back to the villages. They're happy not doing any job because they want to be safe. But in these times, we need to be very, very careful about the cost structures of the organization. Try and manage the costs, keep it to the minimum level, optimize your production, focus on the high contributing product so that at least you can generate some cash in the system and able to sustain the level production levels and also the cash level in the organization. Try and not have a negative EBITDA at least.
Okay, so that's very important on the EBITDA front. So, Mr. Singh, one more thing I wanted to ask you. A lot of businesses, specifically in the automotive components, gets powered through JVs. And a lot of JVs happen when, the foreign JV partner gets technology or, gives a TL, a technology license, or, possibly gets some short assured customers. For example, if there's a Japanese joint venture partner, they will try to get you some Japanese clients, in India, or if it's a Korean, it always works. It always helps. In the given scenario, because 3-4 years back, a lot of Indian JV partners used to say, we just want technology and connects. Capital, no worries. Has the scenario changed now, and where do we see it going in the future?
Well, very good question, Anuj. Actually, if you look at in early 90s, the EBITDA of all the auto component manufacturers were close to 18-19%. But if you look at today's scenario, I don't think so anybody is even making 15%. Very few, I would say.
Okay.
So yes, technology is very important today because there is a lot of disruptions which are going on in the automotive sector on technology front. So if you can just see the 800cc launched by Maruti lasted for over more than 20 years, but now we don't see a model for more than 4 years. Either it comes with a facelift or with the minor changes, but the model changes. So there is a lot of disruption, a lot of changes. Model are changing, the components are changing. It is putting pressure on the industry because development costs are going up. So technology is definitely very, very important, and the access to capital from the joint venture partners is very important because the paybacks in the old times were very less and now the paybacks are going up. So therefore, having a capital which doesn't carry much of an interest, I would say zero interest because equity doesn't carry interest, is very important for us. It's a growth capital.
Great. So one question, it's a little contentious one. The entire world in a way has gone against China for whatever reasons, Wuhan or whatever. China has emerged almost completely from the pandemic. Restaurants have opened, bars, malls, everything is open. Life is almost normal there. Do you think that working with China, and especially when it comes to JVs and M&A with China, would it be effective?
I would say it has to do with sentiments now. So whatever is happening in the news is basically sentiments that we will not buy Chinese goods. So I can see that happening in the ground. So in my company also, we are getting a lot of inquiries, which is basically import substitution from China. And we have ramped up like 3-4 products which people used to get from China. So I feel that there is definitely a shift, not only because of a sentiment, because of the price pressure also. So Chinese commodities and goods are becoming a little expensive because of the dollar pricing. So therefore, it's good for India because our exports are cheaper. Our exports are cheaper because dollar is moving up in terms of rupee. So it's touched almost like 76. So our exports is cheap. The European and the United Nations, I would say, the NAFTA is looking at India as an import hub, and good for us. And I can see in the future that lot of indigenization will happen, and the whatever imports we're doing from China will get shifted to India. I would say, I won't say 100%. I would say to a great extent. Let's begin with 25% number.
So you yourself mentioned that the people are not there to work. Our migrant workers, whom we all urban dwellers took as for granted or as ठीक है, they are replaceable. They eventually turn out to be the wheels of the economy. They have gone back. Factories, warehouses, dealerships all have come to a grinding halt. In this scenario, you think we'll be able to uh, convert Make in China to Make in India?
Anuj, very good question actually. I mean, actually, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with lack of manpower. So my capacities are down by like 40%. We are not able to produce just because we don't have manpower. And we can't force people to come to work. That is also very clear because they are not here. They all migrated, most of them. So in these challenging times, I think the only key for us is to automate.
Okay.
So like, we have started living with the COVID. We have learned how to live with the COVID. So we have to learn how to live with 30% less manpower. I think in a sense it is good because I personally know that there will be a lot of industrialization which is going to happen. We will be short of people. So in case if we are not opting for the automation, putting robotics in the manufacturing, then we are definitely in for a big issue.
Okay. So Mr. Singh is trying to say to us friends that this is a short-term challenge of lack of manpower. Long-term, we see a huge industrialization happening in India. So a lot of jobs would be created. People would surely eventually come back. So it's just a short-term thing. So Mr. Singh, one question, because you have raised funds, you have spoken with PE, you have dealt with these valuation consultants, M&A consultants, so many people, lawyers. So when it comes to raising funds, and if we can put a spotlight on the startups, the MSMEs, which comprise more than 90% of businesses, and the large companies, how should the strategy change for each, especially in this challenging times, to raise funds?
You see, times are challenging, and no doubt about it. But on the other hand, the banks are flushed with the funds. They have lot of money. They want to lend to the industries. Only thing is that if I talk about the large company, they should have a good financial numbers. They should have a leverage to borrow more. The balance sheet should reflect that yes, they really need the working capital and they've dried up. So in case they have some content or some substance in their balance sheets, in the current numbers or the forward-looking statements, they will definitely get money. As far as the startups is concerned, it is completely based on the outlook of the project report of the startup. And government is definitely encouraging the startups. So I think they have more advantage as compared to large companies. MSMEs, of course, I mean, they have a lot of SOPs given by the government. And I'm sure there is no problem in getting funding for SMEs and MSMEs.
Sure, fair enough, sir. So we have a question by Mr. Subham Khanna who has raised his hand. So Subham, please go ahead. Please, you can speak.
Good morning to one and all. Can you all hear me? Hello?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Sir, my question is, if India could invest in a COVID-free country, like New Zealand right now has declared itself as COVID-free. So if Indian companies would merge with New Zealand companies, will that be a boost to the economy in the near future?
Shubham, thank you very much for the question. I just would like to answer. The New Zealand economy is not a manufacturing economy as of now. But yes, we can do that. I'm not very sure whether they have the companies which makes energy with us. But as of now, my view is that New Zealand doesn't have a much manufacturing base. It is basically more of a trading company and a consulting country, I would say. So we can definitely look at something like selling our products in New Zealand through a trading arm. That definitely can work. And COVID is not going to be a big challenge for us. Please, I mean, I think that COVID is going to be just a normal flu in next 3 to 4 months. And we don't have to get afraid of it. So it is just a matter of time.
Thank you, sir.
Great. That is a great question, Subham. So yeah, the answer is there that New Zealand is more into services. So yeah, India also has a burgeoning services industry. Something can be done. But then you also have to manage emotion. You have to manage electorate. Our opposition would just be ready to say, hey, money is going out. Okay. So Mr. Arun Gupta has raised his hand. So Mr. Arun Gupta, please go ahead.
Uh, Sir, good morning. Thank
Yeah,
you
good
for
morning.
this very good session on merger and acquisition. I am a really very informative speech by Sir Bhupinder Pal Singh ji. I have a question, sir, from Mr. Bhupinder Pal ji. Suppose there is one company who is manufacturing, like you said, that the owner is investing so much time in developing the company, developing the products, and now they want to go for merger and acquisition. And when we look for the partners, see, so we have to show them and tell them our some secrets and some things which like what are the good points of the company and why they should invest. And if the deal does not materialize, can that no not go against the company which is already running, and that information may be used by the other people for their own benefit and like that? How to do that? Like we save our own intellectual property also, and we can make that deal like that, or how to do that?
Arunji, very good question. I would say. I mean, it is not a problem for you. It is a problem for all the companies who want to divest their shares. So the matter here is when you have to sell your organization, you have to give the information. That's very clear. So it doesn't work only on the balance sheets. We have to give the purchase orders, customer information, your product information, your manufacturing information, your technologies. You can even they can even go up to an extent that they will have an interaction with your customers, even with their employees also. So there is a process to it. Before giving them any information which is not public, you have to sign a document called non-disclosure agreement. I think you will hear it from the lawyers also who are on the panel. So
Yes,
this
yes.
non-disclosure agreement, you can sign it with a perpetuity. Perpetuity means it will never end. For certain information, for balance sheet, it can end for like 3 years. But for the information which is related to technology, you can take it to n number of years. You said it will never expire, and you will not be able to divulge this information to anybody without my consent or till the time it becomes public. So that is the only thing which can save you. Uh, this is to my belief. I don't know how much this NDA will be enforceable. That is up to the law of the country, but you can definitely safeguard yourself with this. And the risk you are telling me is definitely exists. It is definitely a risk.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That's a very fair question. And at the end of the day, as we always say, it is meeting of people and meeting of minds. And it's just like a marriage. You have to trust each other. In fact, Mr. Singh, this reminds me, just like you have a privilege, a client lawyer privilege, a wife husband privilege. Possibly there should also be a privilege for these kind of due diligences. If something has been done, then the other party, the possible prospect buyer, should be under the privilege not to, disclose this information. And it should be inadmissible. Actually, there should be a privilege.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
yeah.
to be honest with you, Anuj, nobody discloses the information, and the information is only used by the competitors.
Hmm,
So I don't think
exactly.
so anybody will do. It's not ethical also, and nobody does it also, to be
True.
honest.
And I'm sure the NDAs are there to take care of it. If we have huge penalties in NDAs, that should take care of it for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
In my entire career, I haven't seen anybody disclosing such kind of information.
Exactly. It goes against the disclosure, because their position, credibility, standing in the market gets spoiled.
Correct.
So why would they spoil their image just for one flawed deal or one SAR deal?
Yeah, they can use the information for their own experience, so
Yeah.
that when they're going to strike the second deal, this information will help them. But they cannot disclose.
Yes, but if they go ahead and they acquire or take a stake in that company is rival, then there is possibly a malified in that case. Then
Of
the
course.
company
Then
is
you can restrict in the NDA that they should not talk to any competition for next 3 years or 4 years, something.
exactly, so a non-compete clause has to be there.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Gupta, thank you very much for that question. I'm sure that will help a lot of people, because many a times when we see money coming in, we get excited, we get emotional. We don't give so much importance to the nuances. For example, in our last program that we did on 25th of April, one of the lawyers had come. You know what he shared? He shared that if you have made an app using those free tools, and later when you monetize those tools, and you don't give a part of the income to those free tools that you've used, they have a cause of action. Plus, they also have a say and a charge on the IP of your app. So it goes to that extent. So if in fact big companies like Tesla have paid millions in damages because they had taken a stake on a claim that this IP belongs to them, but they had used free tools to prepare that IP, so they did not have a full ownership of that IP. So having lawyer friends, having friends in the M&A fraternity always helps, and these sessions always help.
Absolutely.
Okay. So any other question, friends? By the way, Mr. Singh, we're wondering where Mr. Ashish Gulati is. He's yet to log in. It's already 5 minutes up. He hasn't logged in as yet.
Yeah. So, if you have any other questions, Anuj, I'm happy to answer, but maybe later part of the day, or I mean, we can communicate to your participants through email or whichever mode you want.
Yes. So, in fact, friends, that's so nice of Mr. Singh to give this opportunity. If you have any questions, even later on, if they come to your mind later on, you can as a one time, you can just put it up in the comments section of the page where you had booked your slot for this program. On the page of the M&A, worldautoforum.com/M&A, there are comments at the bottom. You can just put all your questions there, and in the next few days, we will take them up with Mr. Singh, and also any other speaker whom you might want to put the question. Okay, we have a notification from Mr. Ashish Gulati. He's just finishing a call. So friends, as you can see, a client is very important. He must be on a call with a client, I'm assuming. Must be closing a deal for M&A. So we just might have some fresh experiences without him sharing the name, because I'm sure there's been NDA signed. So any last few questions for Mr. Singh? Please feel free, because he is also a busy man. He is a busy man, and he has the entire day. Though it's a Saturday, but he's at the office, as you can see. He has a long day ahead. Any last one or two questions you might have? Please feel free to ask. In fact, Mr. Singh, I was thinking of one question. You mentioned it twice that the banks are flush with money. So what are they doing with that money, and how are they making money if they're just sitting on the money?
Well, not making money, that is for sure, because the business of the bank is to lend the money. So if they're not lending money and they're paying interest on the money they're holding, they will never make money. So they are actually really looking for a good company whose balance sheet has some leverage of funding, and they're funding it. I think in today's, I just answered you previously on this question, that if your balance sheet is capable, there is no dearth of money. You can always get money, and you have a very easy access to the capital. Borrowed, per se.
Okay. So, Mr. Singh, if the banks are flush with money and they're sitting on it with the tap closed, what can be the other sources for raising money?
Well, one is the PE route, and I think you must have heard about it, that now India is sitting with the highest ever foreign exchange reserves.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good news for us. So one is that we have reduced the consumption of fuel. That is one reason.
True.
And could be that we're realizing the exports very fast. That is one. And third is that a lot of money is coming into the country. Foreign exchange is coming into the country. So this could also be one of the, I would say, area which can be explored in, so that the foreign investors can come and invest in the country. So this is one of the key things which we have to keep in mind.
Okay, so Mr. Singh, this gets us to one of the last, portions of, your session. That, as you mentioned, we are in a force majeure condition scenario. The banks are sitting on funds. It's the M&A is not that easy. A person who will be giving money would have a higher leverage and would have a higher negotiating power. In this scenario, when there's force majeure, companies are shutting down or people are going bankrupt. Mr. Mukesh Ambani is getting all the money in, close to 1 lakh crore he has got in from investors around the world during the lockdown, which was worldwide. So and there are other telcos too. So what would he have done different? What are your thoughts when you would have heard this?
I have really no comments on this, but I know that yes, he is getting money, and that was also one of the reasons why we are flushed with the positive balance of payments in India, highest ever, I would say. So, but yes, I know that he is flush with the funds.
Great.
I can only wish him all the best.
So the government of India and the people of India have a lot to thank Mr. Ambani for flushing up our foreign reserves. Huh?
I think we have to thank everyone who is earning for India and who is making sure that India is flush with the funds.
Great. With that note, thank you so very much, Mr. Singh. Really a privilege and honor for us for you to take out time and share such important jewels of wisdom with us.